So, the opening odds for Valentina Shevchenko's next two possible fights or opponents have just been released. And Valentina Shevchenko, to my surprise, remains the underdog. Whether she fights Zhang Weili next or whether she fights Natalia Silva, which this is interesting, especially Zhang Weili. Now that one actually really surprises me. The fact that Valentina is an underdog in this fight. I can kind of get Natalia, but why Weili? Because Zhang Weili is literally a weight class below Valentina Shevchenko. This wouldn't be Weili's first rodeo at 125. I'm sure she's been at flyweight outside of the UFC on the regional circuit, but in the UFC, this will be her first flyweight fight, and against the arguable women's MMA GOAT, Valentina Shevchenko, who has been way more dominant in her UFC career than Zhang. I mean, I know Zhang has only two losses to Rose, and before and after those fights, she's just been on an absolute tear in her UFC career. Um, but Val only has one loss to, Weili's two. Valentina has a size advantage. I just feel like it would make more sense to have Valentina as a favorite. I don't really know what's going through the odds makers' heads when they're making the odds. Like, for me, it feels like if Weili were to pull this off, it would feel like more of an upset. And it's almost like the odds makers haven't learned, because Valentina was an underdog in her last two fights against Alexa Grasso and against Manon Fiorot. She dominates Alexa Grasso as an underdog, and even still, they make her an underdog against Manon Fiorot, which kind of didn't make sense. And then she wins, not overly decisively, but she won, right? I mean, I actually scored the fight for Manon 3-2, but it is what it is. It's whatever. Valentina had a somewhat good performance and won the fight like a champion. And they're still making her the dog against whoever she fights next. But against Weili, it feels more shocking that she would be the underdog. Now, against Natalia Silva, I could kind of understand, because Natalia, she didn't need three attempts to beat Alexa. She beat her on the first try. She's a very dangerous striker, and Valentina couldn't beat Alexa purely standing. She had moments standing. She did win some exchanges against Alexa, but ultimately, she almost won the first fight because of her grappling. She made the second fight as close as it was because of her grappling, with a few striking moments. And then fight three, she won that fight because of all the takedowns and control. That was her best path to victory, to beat someone like Alexa. Natalia Silva didn't need to take her down. I know Grasso's a really good boxer, but Natalia just outclassed Alexa from pillar to post, just purely striking. And right now, other than Valentina and Manon, and even Grasso, who she just outstruck, Natalia may be the best striker we have at women's 125. And will definitely be the best striker that, Valentina will have ever faced. She's got 93% takedown defense, so it's likely that Valentina is not going to easily implement a grappling game plan. And Natalia's got the youth advantage. She's younger. Valentina isn't getting any older. She's getting older. She's not getting any younger. So I can kind of get why Natalia is the favorite. She hasn't lost a fight since 2017. She's on a long win streak. I can actually get Natalia being the favorite. Do I 100% agree with it? No, because I'm not overly confident that Natalia is going to beat Valentina, because Valentina, she has plot armor because she's very beatable, but she always finds a way, whether it's judges' luck or some split second moment that, turns the fight around, like headbutting Tyler Santos, which changed the trajectory of the fight, while being lucky that the judges gave Valentina one of the first three rounds, or even one gave Val two of the first three rounds. Hence the 49-46 against Natalia, which made zero freaking sense. And then against Manon, Manon arguably could have been up 2-1 in the fourth round, and I had her winning the fourth. Then she gets knocked down. Then Val steals it, and then the judges somehow give Valentina the fifth. So Manon had poor luck, and Grasso could have won the second fight by split decision. Mike Bell gives Val the fourth, and he panics and makes round 5 a 10-8, rather than just giving Grasso round 4, and Grasso could have won. So, but then even out, like, plot armor aside, Valentina Shevchenko is just very skilled, very high level, very experienced. She's different than anyone Natalia has ever fought before. She's very difficult to beat. So I wouldn't be overly confident that, Valentina is going to roll over and give up her belt to Natalia Silva. But if anyone at 125 is doing it, it's definitely Natalia, and I can kind of understand the odds. But why Weili Zhang? Okay, why her? She's a good striker, but she's not like technical like Natalia. She doesn't move like Natalia. She's not as fast as Natalia. She's powerful. She's a technical brawler. But we've seen Valentina in there with the likes of Amanda Nunes, and she's handled that power. She's tamed that power. I believe she can grapple with Zhang Weili. I believe she can even out-wrestle Zhang Weili. I mean, I know Tatiana couldn't, but Valentina's not Tatiana, and she'll use her striking to set up takedowns. So, and Weili doesn't have the youth advantage like Natalia. She's not as old as Valentina. Val's like slightly older, but Zhang is in that Manon age range, like 35 going on 36. So, yeah, I don't know. I get Natalia because, I mentioned the reasons I mentioned, but also Valentina Shevchenko, is getting up there in age, and her fights aren't getting any easier. She hasn't been consistently dominant since that 2020 or that 2018 to 2021 phase of her flyweight run. That era, Valentina was running through everybody. But then 2022, close fight with Santos. Sorry, my throat got a little sore there, or scratchy there. Close fight with Tyler Santos in 2022. Lost to Alexa Grasso in 2023. Had a second chance in that same year. Went to a draw with her, and then finally beat her in dominant fashion in in 2024. But then against Manon Fiorot, she has a very, very tough fight. So in that sense, I can get why she would be the underdog against Natalia. But you know what? Maybe that's also why she's the underdog against Zhang. Because Zhang has not had a close fight since Thug Rose in 2021. I mean, I know that Yan Xiaonan made Weili look human and Weili look lackluster in that fight, but it was a dominant performance nonetheless. Weili clearly won that fight 4 rounds to 1. Like, no controversy. You can't say Yan Xiaonan won. So I guess maybe that's why. I guess the odds makers are thinking you got a dominant up-and-comer in Natalia Silva, who's looking unbeatable, versus an aging world champion whose fights are just getting closer and closer each time, and hasn't been consistently dominant since the 2018 to 2021 phase of her career. And then you got Zhang Weili, an absolute juggernaut, who's just running through everyone in her title defenses. Maybe that's what they're looking at. I don't know. I don't fully agree, but, it's interesting. I am definitely going to root for Weili if the fight happens. I know I said I'm rooting for a double knockout, but for me, Zhang is like the lesser of the two evils. And actually, I've kind of been a Zhang fan and a Zhang supporter on this channel. So if I would root for someone in this fight, I would definitely root for Weili. And not even just out of, me despising Valentina. It would be dope to see Weili become double champion. And then, of course, I know Natalia beat Alexa, but I'm trying to see the new era at women's flyweight. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you guys agree with these odds, or are the odds makers tripping?